Hello from Daily Moral Story, and welcome to today's moral story. Have you ever wondered if one small act of kindness could change everything? It began on a cold Monday in a sleepy town outside Bridgeport, where people rushed through their days with half-hearted smiles. A modest gas station on Maple Avenue, usually overlooked, was quietly buzzing with possibility. The manager, Phil, was glued to his phone, barely greeting customers. Engines hummed outside, emphasizing life's frantic pace, yet the store hinted at something deeper. Shelves held standard snacks and drinks, and employees wore tired expressions. Amid this setting stood Martin, in his late 30s, wearing a shabby jacket and jeans, pretending to be an unemployed man who seemed unsure of himself. In reality, he was the newly appointed CEO of a convenience chain that had acquired the station. He and his co-CEO, Aaron, feared their expanding business might lose its people-first spirit, so Martin went undercover to observe everyday interactions. Soon his focus settled on Val, a mid-20s cashier with short black hair and a kind smile that made her stand out. She didn't just ring up purchases, she asked customers about their days, offered directions, and apologized genuinely for any inconvenience, no matter how minor. When Martin approached her register, she greeted him with warmth, outlining store openings and encouraging him not to give up. She made no judgment of his unsure demeanor or worn appearance. Martin left that day feeling intrigued by her sincerity, resolved to return with an application and learn more about how her compassion shaped the store. He came back early the next morning, application partially filled out with references that wouldn't trace back to his corporate identity. Phil hardly acknowledged him, muttering for Martin to drop the form on the counter before resuming his phone call. Carla, the tall, no-nonsense shift supervisor, offered him a brief nod. Yet Val recognized Martin right away, waving him over and smiling as though she'd been waiting. She explained the store's typical routines: the chaotic rush hour when drivers just wanted to pay for gas and leave, the midday lull when lost travelers might wander in needing help, and the occasional evening crisis involving payment mix-ups. Martin lingered around, observing how Val continually went the extra mile. She joked with exhausted truckers, reassured anxious mothers, and listened attentively when older folks needed to vent. A small line formed at the register, but Val moved briskly without losing her friendly edge. Martin noticed other employees appeared indifferent or stressed, focusing more on tasks than on people. Only Val consistently tried to humanize each encounter. While helping her stock shelves one afternoon, Martin asked what motivated her to show such empathy when customers rarely thanked her. Val said she believed kindness was a ripple that could grow, even if it was often invisible at first. She admitted it wasn't always easy. She lived in a modest apartment, cared for a younger sibling, and struggled to keep up with her mother's medical expenses. Still, she insisted that a genuine smile or a little help could alter someone's day. That night Martin left, impressed by her unforced compassion. On the phone, Aaron listened as Martin described Val's impact. Aaron worried whether one person's efforts could truly influence the entire store, but Martin insisted they had to see how far her example reached. He planned to continue his undercover role, gather more observations, and then reveal himself once he had a solid plan to help Val and transform the station's culture. By the end of the first week, Martin realized Val was carrying the store's spirit on her shoulders. The rest of the staff seemed stuck in routine, often battling low morale. Phil was preoccupied, Carla stressed, and the newer hires lacked proper guidance. Nevertheless, Val kept smiling, diffusing tense moments. Martin saw her quietly pay the difference when a father came up short for diapers, and he heard her offer heartfelt condolences when a regular customer mentioned a sick relative. Most strikingly, Val never showcased her kindness for praise. She acted simply because she believed it was the right thing to do. Martin felt torn, wanting to reveal his real identity so he could give her the recognition she deserved, but he also needed more insight into the store's deeper problems. Late one evening, after closing, he offered Val a ride home. She hesitated but ultimately agreed, explaining that she'd missed the last bus. On the way, she talked about dropping out of college to help her mother, admitting that money was always tight. Martin admired her resilience, privately noting that her quiet sacrifice embodied the company values he and Aaron had once championed on slides but rarely saw in practice. When the second week arrived, Martin pretended to finalize employment paperwork, wanting to see how official store processes worked. Phil barely glanced at the forms, tossing them aside, while Carla gave Martin a minimal orientation. Throughout each shift, Martin witnessed the same cycle: employees rushing, customers getting annoyed, and Val jumping in to ease frustrations. A furious driver complained that the air pump outside wasn't working. Phil muttered that it wasn't their responsibility, but Val apologized, offered a free coffee, and promised to file a maintenance request. A harried mom discovered she didn't have enough cash for formula. Val discreetly contributed what little she had. Martin, watching from the sidelines, felt humbled. This was what he and Aaron had dreamed of: genuine compassion that put people before profit. He started dreading how her efforts might burn her out if management never supported her. Each night, Martin debriefed Aaron. Aaron had questions about staff unity, store cleanliness, and the accuracy of inventory items they knew impacted customer experience. Martin gave honest feedback. Morale was low, the manager didn't foster teamwork, and employees felt unseen. Yet Val's example offered hope, proving that kindness could thrive even in a disorganized environment. Midway through that second week, Martin overheard a tense exchange between Carla and Jerome, a younger employee who kept mixing up shipments. Instead of stepping in, Phil barked at both to figure it out, then walked away. Val, noticing Jerome's frustration, stopped what she was doing to help him relabel boxes, carefully reorganizing stock. Her calm approach resolved the argument quickly. That incident showed Martin that Val was doing managerial work, despite holding a cashier's position. He felt a surge of respect for her natural leadership, recalling how often unsung heroes kept a business afloat. One afternoon, Martin discreetly paid for Val's lunch, telling her it was a store promotion. She laughed, guessing the station was far too disorganized to plan something like that. "Must be my lucky day," she joked. Martin smiled, but felt a pang, knowing luck had nothing to do with it. He wanted to lighten her burden, if only slightly. On a phone call with Aaron that evening, Martin voiced growing frustration at seeing someone so selfless go unrecognized. "We have to do something soon," he said. Aaron agreed, suggesting they schedule a corporate visit. Martin would keep his identity hidden until the end, then reveal the truth, call out Val's contributions, and propose new initiatives to uplift the staff. The day of the planned visit arrived. Rumors flew about potential layoffs or drastic changes. Tension filled the store as people tried to tidy up and appear efficient. Martin vanished briefly, transforming from his ragged clothes into a sharp suit. Aaron arrived in equally formal attire, calmly instructing employees to gather near the coffee bar for an important announcement. Confusion rippled when Martin stepped forward. Some employees recognized his face, but couldn't reconcile it with his polished demeanor. Martin took a deep breath and addressed them. He revealed that he'd been working undercover for the past 2 weeks, apologizing if anyone felt deceived, and explaining that he wanted a genuine perspective on day-to-day operations. Many looked stunned, some betrayed, others curious. Martin then acknowledged everyone's hard work but honed in on Val's extraordinary empathy. He recounted how he'd seen her comfort angry customers, pay out of her own pocket for baby essentials, and mediate staff conflicts, all without seeking praise. As Val stood by, tears glistened in her eyes. Aaron stepped in, announcing that they would promote Val to a newly created role, Customer Experience Lead, complete with a pay raise. He also unveiled a new fund designed to help employees in emergencies, named in honor of Val's kindness. Applause followed, and Val seemed overwhelmed by emotion. Yet Martin and Aaron didn't stop there. They promised to address scheduling issues, improve outdated equipment, and revamp training methods so no one felt unsupported. Managers like Phil were reminded that genuine leadership meant nurturing staff, not ignoring them. Carla, relieved that the changes weren't punitive, committed to better communication. A wave of cautious optimism swept through the store, softening the tension that had weighed on everyone. After the meeting, employees gathered around Val, some apologizing for not helping her more, others thanking her for always being there. Martin watched with satisfaction, glad she was finally getting recognition. That evening, he and Aaron took Val to a nearby diner to celebrate. Over simple burgers and fries, she confessed that she never sought a promotion or reward, but she was grateful people finally saw the value in simple compassion. In the following days, the atmosphere at the Maple Avenue station shifted. Val, now customer experience lead, organized small changes like a dedicated help desk corner and friendlier signs. She trained coworkers to greet customers by name and encouraged them to be patient, especially when facing frantic travelers or parents with restless children. Even Jerome, who once felt inadequate, blossomed under her positive reinforcement. The store's staff began to bond in ways Martin hadn't witnessed before, helping each other restock and cover shifts. Phil, aware of his shortcomings, started participating in daily check-ins. Carla acknowledged Val's role openly, praising her during team huddles. Word spread to neighboring stores within the chain. Some employees from other branches called to congratulate Val on her promotion, intrigued by how her station had turned around so quickly. Aaron replicated certain policies at a corporate level, introducing flexible scheduling for single parents, a more responsive system for complaint handling, and better training that emphasized empathy. Meanwhile, Martin kept watch on finances, ensuring that the changes were sustainable. He found that, surprisingly, the station's sales edged upward as customer satisfaction rose. In staff surveys, morale jumped significantly. Anecdotal feedback noted that new hires felt more welcomed and long-time employees reported less stress. It became clear that kindness wasn't just a feel-good ideal, it had practical benefits that trickled all the way to the bottom line. A few weeks later, Martin and Aaron hosted a regional meeting for store managers, touting Maple Avenue as a model. They highlighted concrete data, reduced employee turnover, higher customer satisfaction ratings, and modest but encouraging revenue improvements. Then they introduced Val on stage to share her personal perspective. She spoke calmly about seeing customers as people first, not just transactions. She explained how empathy had guided her through confrontations, reminding managers that treating someone with dignity often prevented problems later. Her story resonated deeply. Several managers approached her afterward, eager to implement similar ideas. Some expressed guilt for having dismissed employees who exhibited too much friendliness, assuming it slowed down service. Val insisted that a balance was possible. Warmth didn't have to clash with efficiency. The managers left motivated to replicate her approach in their own stores. Soon, an internal online forum buzzed with managers exchanging tips on positive conflict resolution. One described how he adapted Val's method of discreetly helping a strapped customer. Another talked about creating a small break room library to encourage staff downtime. The more stories people shared, the clearer it became that kindness was contagious. Back at Maple Avenue, Val's success was evident in day-to-day operations. The old tension faded as employees started trusting management's willingness to address issues. Jerome became the de facto inventory specialist, preventing the mishaps that once plagued him. Carla found a better work-life balance, acknowledging that a rested supervisor handled pressure more calmly. Phil, for his part, tried to stay on top of staff concerns, though he still had moments of retreating behind his phone. The crucial difference now was that an environment existed where employees felt safe voicing problems. Val made sure no one was left without a solution or at least a listening ear. Customers took notice, often leaving written compliments near the register, praising the station's friendly atmosphere. Some even told others to stop by if they needed directions or just a comforting word. This shift validated everything Martin and Aaron had hoped to achieve. Real transformation was possible with the right catalysts in place. Martin paid frequent visits, finding genuine pleasure in seeing how the once bleak store now thrived. Sometimes he would sweep floors or help rearrange displays, remembering how he'd done those tasks while undercover. The difference now was that everyone pitched in with shared purpose rather than going through the motions out of obligation. One afternoon, Martin spotted a handwritten thank you note from a customer who'd lost her wallet yet received help from Val. She wrote that the cashier refused a reward and simply wished her well. Martin placed the note on a growing board of customer feedback, proud that the station had become a bright spot. That evening, he met Val at a nearby coffee shop to discuss the new foundation named after her. A modest sum had already been used to assist employees dealing with medical crises or sudden housing emergencies. Val admitted she felt overwhelmed by the attention, but was glad the fund could offer practical relief. Martin and Aaron planned to expand it further, turning it into a formal program that each store could contribute to and access. Val provided ideas on handling the application process fairly, suggesting that anonymity could prevent embarrassment. Martin couldn't help but marvel at her genuine concern for dignity. He knew he and Aaron had made the right decision. A month later, they organized another regional gathering. Managers shared how their stores were gradually adopting Maple Avenue's model. Some faced resistance, but they were chipping away at cynicism. Aaron presented updated metrics, more positive customer reviews, declining staff turnover, and a notable uptick in team morale. He recounted stories of employees stepping up in emergencies, using the Val Fund to cover things like urgent car repairs or unexpected hospital bills. At the heart of it all was a simple principle: seeing people as people. After the meeting, managers and supervisors lined up to talk to Val. Her humility made them comfortable asking questions they'd have shied away from in a purely corporate setting. She confessed that she still felt nervous speaking in front of large groups, and that she was learning too, but her sincerity resonated. One manager admitted he used to ignore staff birthdays, believing it was a distraction. Now he understood how small gestures forged bonds. Another realized he'd treated polite conversation with customers as a time waster, missing opportunities to build loyalty. Each revelation confirmed that Maple Avenue's success wasn't a fluke. Back at the station, Val trained a couple of new hires, emphasizing that genuine rapport mattered just as much as memorizing product codes. She showed them how to greet regulars by name and how to gently steer disgruntled customers towards solutions rather than arguments. Jerome proudly displayed a reorganized stockroom, labeling shelves with color codes for easy sorting, minimizing the confusion that used to spark internal friction. Carla scheduled short morning huddles, encouraging employees to share any personal or work concerns. Phil tried to stay engaged, occasionally surprising everyone by stepping out from behind the counter to help during busy stretches. Over time, these small but consistent improvements gave the station a reputation for warmth and reliability. People actually started looking forward to stopping in, whether it was to grab coffee or just say hello. Martin noticed passers-by smiling more, and staff greeting each other with genuine interest. In quiet moments, Val often reflected on how surreal it felt to be recognized by corporate heads and colleagues. She insisted to Martin that she was just someone who saw helping people as a responsibility, not an extraordinary feat. One evening, Martin found her tidying up after close, methodically wiping down counters. The fluorescent lights cast a gentle glow across her tired face. He thanked her for staying true to who she was, admitting that her simple compassion had led to a wave of changes throughout the entire company. She blushed, saying, "I'm just glad people are happier." Martin smiled, realizing that humility was part of her magic. He recalled how ironically it all began. A corporate CEO disguised in shabby clothes, meeting an overlooked cashier who turned out to be the heart and soul of the store. He reassured her that her example had created a lasting legacy, one that would guide the company's future expansion. In the following weeks, Martin and Aaron introduced more systemic revisions, a clearer path for employee advancement, mandated manager training in conflict resolution, and annual staff feedback surveys that truly shaped decisions. The Val Fund grew, allowing branches to assist their own employees under financial strain. Reports rolled in about how single parents now had more flexible scheduling, saving them from costly daycare, and how some employees had begun collaborating with local charities. The board of directors, initially cautious about these non-traditional expenditures, saw how public goodwill and staff loyalty brought long-term benefits. Eventually, Martin felt ready to unveil the story of Maple Avenue on a broader scale. Corporate newsletters featured before and after highlights, comparing the old tense environment with the new sense of community. Pictures showed Val training employees, a staff break room with a fresh coat of paint and healthy snacks, and even the once sullen Phil now engaged in conversation. Testimonials from employees described feeling valued for the first time in years. Customers wrote about how a simple stop for gas turned into a comforting experience thanks to small gestures of care. Martin loved seeing how a single store's transformation encouraged other locations to adopt similar measures. No, not every place saw an instant, dramatic shift, but pockets of resistance slowly dissolved when staff realized corporate wasn't just preaching values, it was investing in them. Months passed, and the Maple Avenue station became known regionally as the friendliest pit stop around. Drivers who passed through even left social media posts praising the staff's genuine warmth. Val continued balancing the responsibilities of her new role with her ongoing concern for her family. Thanks to a pay raise and better benefits, she no longer had to skip meals to pay bills. She set aside a small portion of her earnings to continue helping others. Though Martin and Aaron often traveled for expansion projects, they kept in touch with her regularly. Corporate events sometimes featured Q&A sessions where she humbly explained how empathy shaped every interaction. Managers who once thought employee kindness would slow down business found themselves adopting her advice and seeing improved customer loyalty in return. Eventually, the day came when Martin felt the impact at a deeply personal level. A clerk at another branch told him that hearing about Val convinced him not to quit after a rough first month. Instead, he'd tried her approach, listening more, smiling more, and it paid off. That clerk was now being considered for a team lead position because he'd brought new energy to his store. Martin relayed this to Val, who smiled widely. "It's all them," she insisted. "I just gave a little nudge." Yet Martin knew her spirit was the catalyst. Reflecting on all that had happened, Martin and Aaron realized how one overlooked cashier's genuine generosity had sparked a transformation extending far beyond Maple Avenue. Val's unwavering kindness proved that empathy was more than a soft skill. It yielded real benefits for employees and customers alike. She also reminded skeptics that a single caring person could shift an entire environment from indifference to compassion. Thanks to her, leadership created a crisis fund, offered better benefits, and insisted on empathy-oriented training. Her story also underscored a crucial truth. Every small act, a listening ear, a small donation, a patient response, carried a potential ripple effect no spreadsheet could measure. Even if kindness went unacknowledged, it left a mark that shaped attitudes, created loyalty, and sparked hope. Martin and Aaron expanded the business with renewed purpose, determined to keep that human-first approach alive in every new store they opened. Val, meanwhile, remained humble. She continued living by the same principle that helping others ultimately helped everyone. Her name appeared in newsletters, and managers across the region cited her as a prime example of conscientious service. Customers, too, noticed a real difference when employees offered genuine smiles instead of forced scripts. The Maple Avenue station became a living testament to what could happen when a single person's kindness took root in a larger ecosystem. People felt the shift as soon as they walked in. The staff recognized regulars, asked about their day, and provided extra assistance without expecting thanks. A place once marked by rushed transactions was now a source of warmth and friendliness, while life could still throw curveballs. A broken coffee machine, a misguided delivery truck. Those problems no longer crushed morale because the team faced them together. If you find inspiration in Val's story, consider how a small gesture, a word of encouragement, a little compassion, might brighten someone else's day. Perhaps you're a supervisor who could spend more time listening, or an employee longing to be seen. Maybe you're a student juggling responsibilities, or a parent balancing tight finances. Whatever your role, remember that kindness often sprouts quietly, nourished by each empathetic act. By paying attention, you can turn routine encounters into something uplifting, whether at work, at home, or in your community. If this story moved you, share your thoughts or pass it on. The world always needs more empathy, and it often begins with one brave decision to care. Follow along for more stories like this, and keep Val's lesson close. You never know how far a single spark of compassion can travel, or how many lives it can illuminate when nurtured by a simple, genuine smile.